Hello, I was waiting for you to arrive. Promise you won't leave next. Click the subscribe button and I want to see you here every day. Promise?
The royal palace of Joseon was a magnificent cage of high walls and deadly rules. But for Sung Deok-im, the royal library Gyeongak was the only place where she could truly breathe. As a simple court lady, her life belonged to the state, but her mind belonged to the books. On that humid summer afternoon, Deok-im was hidden behind a dusty bookshelf. Committing a small crime, she was writing a racy romance novel about a scholar and a gisang. Using palace paper and ink, she giggled as she wrote the next line, completely absorbed in her fictional world. The calligraphy is good, but the plot is vulgar. The deep, cold voice made Deok-im jump. She hid the paper behind her back and spun around. Standing before her was a young man, dressed in the blue robes of a military official, but with a rigid posture and an arrogance that screamed danger. "Who are you to criticize my story?" Deok-im retorted, forgetting etiquette in her fright. "Shouldn't you be training with swords instead of spying on court ladies?" The man narrowed his eyes. It was Lee San, the crown prince, the future king, known in the court as the tiger for his perfectionist and ruthless temperament. But he wasn't wearing his royal robes. He was in disguise to inspect the library without being pestered by you. "You have a sharp tongue for someone wearing the red sleeve," San said, referring to the crimson detail on her cuff that indicated she was the king's woman. "What if I told you that paper belongs to the crown prince? The prince is a monster who measures dust with a ruler," Deok-im whispered conspiratorially. "He would never read a novel. He probably hates happiness." San felt a muscle in his jaw twitch. No one ever told him the truth to his face. Everyone trembled. But this girl with big eyes and ink-stained hands was insulting him with a refreshing candor. For the first time in his lonely life, he felt amused. "Wipe that ink off your face," he ordered, turning his back to hide an involuntary smile that threatened to crack his mask of coldness. "And improve the third chapter. The scholar seems like an idiot." San left the library with his heart beating faster than usual. He had gone there seeking silence and order, but he had found chaos. And chaos seemed fascinating. Days later, the truth came out during the Dano festival. Deok-im was running through the gardens when she crashed into a royal procession. She fell to the ground. When she lifted her head, she saw the royal guards, the eunuchs, and the ministers all bowing, and in the center, wearing the red dragon robe with the forklawed emblem, was him, the man from the library. Deok-im's world stopped. She prostrated herself, trembling, her forehead touching the dirt. "Your Highness, kill me for my insolence!" San stepped down from the palanquin. He walked to her and, in a gesture that made the entire court hold its breath, extended his hand to help her up. "No," he said, looking into her terrified eyes. "Your punishment will not be death. Your punishment will be to serve me. From today on, you are my personal scribe. You belong to me." Time passed, and the prophecy was fulfilled. The old king died, and Lee San ascended the throne. He was now King Jongjo, the supreme ruler of Joseon. The weight of an entire nation rested on his broad shoulders. But the most unbearable weight was that of his own heart. Sung Deok-im was now at the center of power. But she felt more like a prisoner than ever. As the king's personal scribe, she spent her nights in his chambers, sitting at a small table, transcribing royal decrees and San's nightly reflections. The tension between them was palpable, thick as the smoke from the incense burning in the room. One rainy night, San put down his brush. He looked at Deok-im, who was diligently grinding ink. "Deok-im," he called. His voice was hoarse with fatigue and desire. "Yes, Your Majesty," she replied, not looking up. "Look at me!" She obeyed. San's gaze was intense, stripped of the royal mask. It was the look of the man from the library. He stood up and walked to her, kneeling beside her small desk, ignoring the protocol that required him to always be above everyone. "I want you to be mine," he said, "not as a scribe. I want you to be my royal consort. I want you to be my family. I want to wake up and see your face, not eunuchs." It was a request of love, but also an implied command. A king does not ask, he takes. But San was asking, because he knew he could have her body, but her heart required consent. Deok-im clasped her hands in her lap. Her heart beat against her ribs like a caged bird. She saw the infinite loneliness in his eyes. She wanted to say yes. She wanted to hug him. But she also saw the future. Herself, sitting alone in a pavilion, waiting for him, while he had other wives, other duties, another world she could not enter. Your Majesty, she said slowly, if I become your consort, everything I am will disappear. I will cease to be Scribe. I will be just a shadow attached to the throne. I value my freedom, however small it may be. I want to belong to myself. San recoiled, as if he had been slapped. The rejection hurt more than any political betrayal. He was the most powerful man in the kingdom. He could have anything, but the only woman he wanted was saying no. Are you rejecting me? He asked, his voice hardening with pain. Do you prefer a cold room to living with me? Yes, she replied bravely, meeting his gaze. Because that cold room is mine. The golden cage would be yours. San stood up. The hurt turned into cold anger. He felt foolish for exposing his heart. Leave, he ordered, turning his back on her. Go to your quarters. If you value your freedom so much, keep it. But do not forget who allows you to have that freedom. Deok-im bowed, tears flowing silently, and walked out into the rain. San stood alone in the vast royal chamber, realizing that he owned a country. But he couldn't own the heart of the woman he loved. Deok-im's rejection created an abyss of ice between her and King Lee-san. For months, they maintained a strictly professional relationship, but the air crackled with unspoken words every time they were in the same room. However, fate had other bloody plans. A rebel political faction, dissatisfied with San's reforms, planned an assassination during the royal autumn banquet. Deok-im, with her network of gossip among the court ladies, heard a whisper in the kitchen. Poison in the king's soup. She didn't think about her freedom. She didn't think about the rejection. She thought only of him. She ran to the banquet hall just as San was about to bring the spoon to his mouth. No! Screamed Deok-im, bursting into the hall, ignoring the gods. She ran to the royal table and, in a gesture of madness, slapped the soup bowl from the king's hands. The soup fell onto the wooden floor and hissed, burning the varnish. Acid poison. The hall went into panic. Assassin! Protect the king! The guards grabbed Deok-im, throwing her to the floor violently. Swords were drawn against her neck. Stop! Thundered San. He stood up, pale, looking at the poisoned soup and at the woman bleeding on the floor who had just saved his life. That night, Deok-im was thrown into prison for interrogation, standard protocol, until the conspiracy was revealed. San went to visit her in the cold, damp cell. He saw her curled up, bruised. His rage wasn't at the assassins, but at her helplessness. You almost died, he said, gripping the iron bars, his knuckles white. You are just a court lady. If I hadn't been there, they would have beheaded you on the spot. I had to save you, your majesty, she whispered, looking up at him. Why? He asked, his voice trembling. You value your freedom so much. Why risk it for me? Because, ... double quotes. Deok-im looked into his eyes, and the truth finally came out. Because a world without you is not worth living in, your majesty. San opened the cell door. He entered and held her by the arms, pulling her up. I can no longer let you be just a court lady, he declared, with a terrifying intensity. You are a target now. The enemies of the throne know what you did. The only way to protect you is if you are mine, if you are part of the royal family. He looked deep into her eyes. D-O-K dash him, ... I am no longer asking. I am begging. Marry me. Let me protect you. Your freedom means nothing if you are dead. Deok-im looked at him. She saw the fear in his eyes, the fear of losing her. And she realized that he was right. Her small freedom was a luxury she could no longer afford if it meant leaving him alone in the shark tank. She nodded slowly, tears streaming down her face. Yes, she whispered. I will be your consort. This time, Deok-im did not refuse. She accepted her fate. She accepted love. The wedding night was silent and intense. There was none of the pomp of a political Marriage! There was just a man and a woman in a candlelit room, finally crossing the bridge that had separated them for years. San touched her face, tracing the line of her jaw, as if he didn't believe she was finally there. Will you regret it? He asked, his voice hoarse. Losing your wings! Deok-im took his hand, the hand that held the weight of a nation, and kissed the palm. I didn't lose my wings. San, she said, using his name for the first time without titles. I just decided to land on the tree I love. San kissed her. It was a kiss of gratitude, of passion repressed for years, of absolute relief. The years that followed were the happiest of San's life. Deok-im, now the noble consort Ui, gave him a son, gave him laughter, gave him a home inside the cold palace. They lived stolen moments, reading together in the library, walking in the rain, simply being a man and a woman. But history is cruel. Years later, Deok-im fell ill. The same fragility that had marked her as human was taking her away. On her deathbed, San held her hand, weeping like a child. Don't go, he begged. I am the king. I command you to stay. Deok-im smiled weakly. Not even the king can give orders to death, my love. If you go, San said, desperate, wait for me. Do not cross the bridge of oblivion. Wait for me. We will meet again. And in the next life, I won't be king. I will be just a man, and you will be just a woman, and we will be free. I will wait, she promised. Thank you, ... for loving me. Thank you for letting me be myself. Even inside the cage, she closed her eyes. Her hand grew cold in his. San continued to rule. He was a great king. But they said that after the death of consort Ui, he never smiled again. He lived the rest of his life waiting for the moment he could close his eyes and find her again. Epilogue. The dream. San woke up. He was lying in Deok-im's lap in a sunny pavilion. He was young again. She was alive, smiling, reading a book. You've slept a long time, Your Majesty, she said, stroking his face. San looked around. No guards! No ministers! No death! Is this a dream? He asked, afraid to wake up? Or is it death? Deok-im closed the book and took his hand. This is the now, San. The moment has become eternity. You don't need to be king anymore. Just stay with me. San smiled, the first true smile in years. He gripped her hand tightly. I will never let go again, he said. And in that eternal garden, the king and his scribe finally found the freedom they had sought for so long. The freedom to love each other forever.